Chapter 12. A quiet buzz stirred my mind from where it floated listlessly between consciousness and dream. Erick's voice rumbled from deep in his chest. I could hear another male voice on the other end of the phone, but couldn't tell who it was.
"She's fine. No, it was the whip."
A low growl made me turn my head to look up at him. He avoided my gaze.
"If I hadn't been arguing with the Oracle, I would have been with her." "No. She'll deal when she's ready." "Fine. Give me a few minutes."
"What is it?"
"There was a fire in the Lycan's neighborhood."
"Is everyone okay?"
"Yes, everyone is fine, but Rose felt a djinn presence just before it happened."
My heart leaped to my throat. Already? I didn't want to leave him, any of them. Even with the weird crap with the Oracle woman, this place felt right. She'd recognized my parents' family name, and running from her may have been a mistake, but it had been a knee-jerk reaction. I'd always solved my problems by running. It tore at me to think about leaving, but there was no other option. I couldn't let a psychopath roam their streets hurting others just to get to me.
"Breathe, Bailey. I'm taking you to Calliope's. You can pick out a few more clothes while I take care of business. She can sense other supernaturals, too. She'll feel him coming long before he's there. Other than Rose, she's the best companion for you until we eliminate Darius."
"Can't I just stay with you?" I sat up and looked down at him.
"I want you inside a warded building. If not Calliope's, then the castle. But after what happened this morning, that's not an option without me accompanying you."
I swallowed at the mention of the dragon's lair. It truly was a lair, with its dark floors and walls, old-style chandeliers, and wall sconces designed to look like candles. Decadence and elegance mixed with darkness. Going back to that place definitely wasn't an option, as he'd put it, not for a while. "Calliope's." Dimples showed on both cheeks as he smiled.
"I thought as much."
He lifted his hand and caressed my cheek.
"I'm here when you want to talk about it. I can help you."
"Perhaps," I answered. 10 minutes later, he was kissing me on the cheek and leaving me in the cutest boutique. Clothes hung everywhere. Bolts of fabric lined the back wall and shoes lined another. It was enough to make any woman forget her worries, and I was no different. The woman standing a few feet away was gorgeous and scary at the same time. Her eyes were golden brown, and her creamy white skin was as flawless as porcelain. Long black hair hung in smooth, shiny waves well past her waist. She winked at me as a mischievous grin tugged at her lips. Erick said she was a siren. What exactly that was, I didn't know, but the woman made clothes women would die for, probably men, too. The entire shop was filled with things that would make even the wealthiest women in the world swoon.
"Let her pick anything she wants, Calliope."
"Oh, honey, I will shower her with things her mind can't even conceive." He chuckled and slipped out the front door of the shop. The familiar blue shimmer of the warding spell dropped into place as the door closed behind him. Calliope strolled over and turned the deadbolt. "Private shopping is my specialty. We don't need any uninvited visitors." A flick of her hand in the air drew the curtains closed on both front windows. "Now, what do you like to wear?" I stared at the curtains. She'd moved them with a mere gesture. Maybe the citizens of Sanctuary really were capable of protecting themselves. And me. A little of the guilt I'd been carrying around slipped from my shoulders. I had been safely tucked away in this amazing boutique and told to shop to my heart's content. My inner girly girl wanted to squeal out loud, but I contained myself and let my fingers run down a sparkly top, enjoying the silky feel of the fabric. "Can you tell me more about the sisters?" Erick hadn't really explained a lot, and neither had Rose. Maybe I could get a little more out of Calliope. It wouldn't hurt. Especially with what they wanted me to do, I more than deserve the full history lesson. "The House of Llamasu? They are seers." I chuckled and pulled a soft tank from a hanger. "That I know. I think the red would look better with your coloring doll." She pulled another tank from a shelf next to me and offered it up. I put down the brown one and took the red from her. "So, the sisters are a strange group. They are human in every aspect that we know. They age, they die. They don't heal like other supernaturals, but they never have male children, and most of them are more sexually active than rabbits. My mouth dropped open at the last comment, but somehow them living inside a fetish club made a lot more sense now. Being horny doesn't make them others. No, of course not. But the only female baby thing is kind of strange. Who fathers their children? Strangers mostly. The club inside the castle is quite the destination for people in the lifestyle. The brothers have visitor day twice a month where humans and supernaturals from outside Sanctuary can visit and play. Play? Why would anyone consider being tortured play? Though I hadn't seen anyone upset while I was inside. Maybe there was a bit more to this whole thing than I knew. Even so, I had no desire to ever feel another pair of cuffs or hear the clink of a chain or the crack of a whip. I shook my head and refocused back on Calliope. Do men just agree to father children? I don't know the particulars, but contracts are signed and the men are never told if they father a child or not. But they only sleep with human men, right? Because otherwise, wouldn't the children be something else? They aren't allowed to sleep with any supernaturals, though Rose says they aren't capable of having children with most, so it probably wouldn't matter if they did sleep with whoever. And they see the future? I asked. Sometimes. Calliope shrugged. Personally, I think the future is a lot more fun if you don't know it ahead of time. Do you know why Erick is called a protector, and Rose a sentinel? The woman, Arlia, the oracle, said I am to become the 5th protector. Shit, really? But you're human. Calliope's eyes widened. Why don't we go sit down and chat? Since the protector bomb has been dropped, I'm guessing that clears you to know just about everything. Everything? How much more was there to know? I followed her toward the wall of shoes, trying not to drool in the process. They were a pleasant distraction from the questions and fears swirling in my mind. Pretty, aren't they? I nodded. They don't sell shoes like these at Value Mart. She made an ugly face and shuddered. Gods, I should hope not. A giggle slipped out and I sank into a soft velvet armchair. The fabric soothed my frazzled nerves as I rubbed my fingertips over the smooth arm of the chair. So what else did the old biddy say? I know she's been spouting for years about the 5th protector, but this doesn't make sense. All protectors have to be vampire. It's part of the spell. She said I would become the protector, that it was my destiny. So you have to die? That was my understanding. Do you want to die? She cocked her head to the side, studying me, waiting. No. Okay, don't get your panties in a wad. I was just asking. She crossed her legs and sighed. Well, damn, girl. I can see why Erick was so testy. Erick said no one would turn me against my will. He'll make sure of it, too. I can vouch for that. She rolled her head from side to side, vertebra popping loudly. Now, Rose is something called a Llamasu, if she hasn't already explained. She's a really powerful supernatural being that was worshipped back in ancient Babylon. Babylon? Shit, they don't teach y'all history anymore. I keep forgetting the U.S. dropped into the Dark Ages after the L.A. riots. All right, so Babylon was a city that existed thousands of years ago and a world away. Is everyone in town really old? A snort of a laugh erupted from her mouth, and she nodded. Pretty much. I'm from around 1600 BCE. I scrunched my forehead, again not really grasping what she'd said. I'd never heard the acronym BCE. Like it's 2096 right now. If you counted the years backward to 0 and then kept going into the negative numbers, you would eventually get to 1600 BCE. You're almost 4,000 years old? Shh, don't say it out loud like that. Damn, girl, you're making me feel old. Anyway, Rose is from a species of supernatural that guarded a kingdom called Babylon and the portal to a place called the Vale, the original home of everything supernatural. Or at least that's what we think. One of her kind betrayed them, and she and her husband were the only ones who escaped the massacre. Her brother-in-law, Xerxes, was the betrayer. He enslaved the king of the djinn and led an army that succeeded in destroying Babylon for good. Why would he want to destroy people who worshipped him? And what is the Vale? The Vale is a Garden of Eden of sorts, untouched by humans. Beautiful, perfect. Or at least it used to be. She looked at me and waited, but I didn't know what to say. I'd never heard of a Garden of Eden either. You need to read some books, girl. Anyway, it's a secret realm you can only get into with a key. We'll talk about it later. As far as Xerxes goes, I just think he's crazy. But the common story is that Babylon wasn't enough for him. He wanted to sire half Llamasu, half seers, control the world, and wipe out humanity completely. He's pretty much as crazy as they come. I thought the sisters couldn't have supernatural children. There's always a loophole when it comes to the supernatural, and the Llamasu are it. At least that's what Rose claims. She chewed her lip and glanced away for a moment. Rose is really the only one that knows the whole story. What are the protectors for exactly? What spell were you talking about? The protectors are warriors dedicated to protecting the House of Llamasu. I don't know the specifics of the spell, other than it will be permanent. Oh, and they need 8 protectors to complete it. Pretty sure it's about going back to Vale. And Arlia says I'm number 5. Apparently so. She stood from her chair abruptly. You want a drink? I think it's late enough for a glass of wine. No, I'm good. Thanks. Okay. She shrugged and disappeared through a swinging black door into the back room of her shop. I got up and walked over to look at a cute pair of red sandals. When she reappeared, a wineglass was in one hand and a bottle was in the other. She set them both on the counter and joined me by the shoes. You like? I like a lot of things. That doesn't mean I need them. Poof! You are spending someone else's money, and he hasn't paid attention to a particular woman for more than a fleeting one-nighter since the late Middle Ages. When was that? I asked, trying not to sound too eager. Another heavy sigh preceded her answer. I think he was married to her during the 14th century. Has he ever talked about her? I asked, digging to see if she would reveal more than I'd already heard. Eleanor? Some. I know she was very small, fair-haired, and stubborn. He always carried on about how stubborn she was. But I think that's also what he liked about her. She was the only human he's ever wanted to turn that forbade him from doing it. Has he turned people? I knew that's how vampires were made. Other vampires turned them. But it couldn't just be a bite, or there would be a lot more vampires running around than there were. A few, I think, before he met Eleanor. After she passed away, he went off-grid for a while. Rose couldn't find him. No one could. A few centuries later, he reappeared and rejoined Sanctuary. He doesn't talk much about when he was gone, but I know he never had the chance to have a real family or kids, and it eats at him. Eleanor was a taste of what he missed out on. Calliope smiled and pulled the red flats from their display shelf. You should see him, though, when one of the couples in town has a baby. That big, scary Viking is the first one on their doorstep with gifts and well wishes, waiting patiently to hold the new bundle of joy. My heart warmed at the image of Erick cradling a baby. It sounded like he would have made a good father. He certainly was compassionate and caring enough. Sure, he had a rough exterior. Who wouldn't after living as long as he had? But I felt completely safe with him. And after only one night. Hell, I left a bus station with him in a matter of hours after meeting him. Both were miracles, since I'd made a concerted effort to avoid the male species altogether, if possible. I think you should try on those shoes. But they'll form to me? Exactly. Then we can pick out an outfit to go with them. Chuckling, I set the red flats on the floor in front of me and slid my feet out of the shoes I wore, then slipped my feet into the red ones and watched, still awed by the magic, as the shoes shrank to my size and width, fitting so perfectly I'd never want to take them off. Now, come this way. She guided me to a line of racks and proceeded to walk up and down each, pulling off garment after garment. Blouses, skirts, dresses, pants, and several pieces I didn't think were meant for public use. When my arms were sagging beneath the load, she threw a couple of pairs of jeans on top and pointed me toward a curtained area on the other side of her shop. Go get undressed and I'll grab you a few more bra and panty sets, too. This is too much. Nope, you'll need it. You're gonna be here a while, doll. But it's too much money. Erick has more money than he knows what to do with. Don't worry about price tags. Plus, he specifically told me to spoil you. He did not, I shot back, pulling the curtain across the dressing area. I dropped the mound of clothing on a nearby armchair and pulled off the purple dress I was wearing. "Yes, he did. You just didn't hear him." Her voice was close, right on the other side of the curtain. Her arm came through the gap near the wall, holding out a variety of bras and panties. "Found these too." 2 hours later, after trying on and modeling each piece of fantastic clothing, she took all of them, wrapped them in tissue, and put them in 3 large recyclable bags. I couldn't believe how many beautiful things were in those bags just for me. It was more clothing than I'd ever owned in my entire life, and certainly nicer than anything I could afford. "Hungry?" she asked, tucking the bags behind the counter. "We could head over to Rose's. Erick texted a little while ago that they were still working." "What are they doing?" "A djinn has been popping in and out of Sanctuary all day. I get faint reads on him and then nothing." "How can you tell?" "I'm a siren. We have a sixth sense about supernatural individuals. Kinda like a warning radar. Helps us with hunting." She grinned. "Rose has it too. If we can't smell them, we can usually sense them another way. Erick said that was one reason he was willing to leave you with me." She belted out a laugh. "Yeah, that and I'm a bitch with claws." Her eyes darkened and I watched, spellbound, as her bright red nails lengthened into what could literally be described as claws. Holy crap. I choked a little and took a step back. "Sorry," she giggled out. "I love doing that." "Let me guess. You don't get to scare humans very often anymore." "Oh, touché." She laughed again as her eyes and nails changed back to normal. "You saw Miles today. Did he breathe fire?" "Fire? He can do that?" "Of course. He and Eli are both fire dragons," Calliope replied. "No, he just leaned in and did something with his eyes. It was creepy, like what you just did. Well, you should ask him to breathe fire for you sometime. It's an amazing thing to see." "I'm sure it is. I think I'd rather keep all my hair unsinged for now. Thanks for the heads up, though." Calliope grabbed a small yellow purse from behind the counter and waved toward the door. "Come on, let's get some lunch. I'm starved." "Sure. I could eat again. Though if they kept feeding me 3 meals a day, my clothes would have to readjust for my growing waistline. Don't y'all ever get bored of eating at just one restaurant?" I stepped to the side and waited while Calliope locked the door to her shop. "Nope. The brownies and pixies are always changing things up. The menu rarely stays the same for more than 2 weeks at a time. Now, if there's something specific you want, you can always ask for a special order." She turned toward me and we strolled down the concrete sidewalk toward Rose's cafe. The cafe's like home. You never get tired of home cooking. "How long have you lived in this town?" She sighed and swiped her dark chocolate bangs to the side. "I've been here since the 1920s. I was between husbands at the time, and Rose convinced me there could be more purpose to my life than finding my next sugar daddy." "How many husbands have you had?" "Dozens by now. I lost count years ago. Though I haven't married anyone since moving to Sanctuary. Most humans who visit are already attached to a partner. I'm not really interested in developing an attachment to anyone who lives in town, and my reputation keeps me pretty single. I stick to out-of-towners." "What reputation would that be?" "Everyone I develop a lasting sexual relationship with dies." "Why?" "I'm a siren. I fall madly in love, but it's never allowed to last long. One day I'm happy, then the next I wake up and they're dead beside me in bed. The longest relationship I've had lasted 5 years. I knew every day I stayed with him put him in danger, but I just couldn't leave. I love to fall in love." "So it's not really intentional?" "Well, it's complicated. But like I said, there's no one in town who would risk a relationship with me, and certainly no man who would spend an entire night in my bed knowing I was a siren." "You must be lonely." I couldn't imagine living with that kind of curse hanging over my head. The thought of killing the person you loved while you slept. Being single this last century has been good for me. The cravings for a relationship have gotten easier to ignore. Rose in this town and the people in it have filled an emptiness in my soul I could never do on my own. She paused in front of the cafe door and turned, catching my gaze. "Plus, if I need a good fucking from time to time, The club in the castle is right across the circle." I swallowed. "You sleep with— I do not sleep with anyone. I do, however, fuck several sexy older gentlemen when they visit from out of town. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. They enjoy it, and it helps me stay satisfied, sexually." I reached for the cafe door and shook my head as I pulled it open. I never would have believed all of this only a few days ago. Now it's one weird story after another. Are there others like you? Of course. We aren't a prolific species, but there are others. I've only met a handful of other sirens in my lifetime. She entered the cafe first, and I followed her over to sit at the bar. Raven walked up on the other side, her flowing locks every color of the rainbow. "Love the new colors, girlie," Calliope said, opening the menu lying on the counter in front of her. "Thanks. It was time to freshen it up. You should see Maven's. Pretty as solid purple." "Cool. How are you settling in, Bailey? Did you hear about the djinn setting fires over in the Lycan neighborhood?" "That's why she's with me, Pixie. Her ever-protective vampire actually had to work today." "Garrett and Travis came in earlier. They said it's not going well," Raven added. "The djinn keeps jumping, never staying in one place long enough for anyone to get a good look at him. But he did say the scent was familiar." "Meaning it's the same one who followed me from Fort Worth," I muttered. Every muscle in my body tensed, and the fear I'd managed to push away came roaring back like a tidal wave, threatening to drown me. What use was running? The djinn would always be coming for me. He'd never stop. Just like Kevin. "Doesn't matter, sweetie. We got you covered. He's just trying to get on people's nerves. Rose will have him boxed soon enough." "Boxed?" Raven turned to Calliope. "Oh, Charles popped in this morning and said to let you know to come see him when you get a chance." "He wasn't supposed to be here for another week. Why didn't he come to the shop?" "Said you had company and he didn't want to interrupt. Something about the shop being closed." "Oh," Calliope grinned. "Guess Bailey and I were a little distracted earlier." She turned in her stool and winked. "Charles is one of my friends from out of town." I nodded. "I can stay here in the cafe if you want to go see him." "Nope, I'm on duty. Charles will understand. Plus, he's the one who showed up unscheduled.